Okay. All right, dude. Um,
How's it going?
I had some pretty cool. I thought more about the euphoria and actually experienced it last night too with food. I had a little. I overate, and it was because I was really hungry. And I think I experienced. I don't know if you've ever done any fasting. I have. And what you experience by the end of it is like you start to have this euphoric feeling, like everything's great. And if you're unmeasured, uncarefully, you can just like really pile in a bunch of food. My stomach hurt so freaking bad this morning because of all of that and other things. And I just thought, as it was happening, I thought, wow, how interesting. It happens here too. Hmm, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Right? Isn't that kind of
The only
fascinating?
thing is, it doesn't really matter, right? It only matters when you're losing money. If
Hmm.
you got a small stomach ache, who cares, right?
Yeah, well, it's easier to overlook. Certainly, it doesn't seem to have the distress, the continuation of the distress, like the money is. But I'm like I said yesterday, and we had a good discussion. You and I
Yeah.
are on a great plane of existence as it relates to us making this progress. So I'm really encouraged by what we're doing, and see a lot of success coming from it. So that said. Let me share my screen to you so you can see what I'm doing.
All
Uh,
right.
this one here. And then just a few more things I got to adjust here before I'm going to be ready to present. I want to show you something. I'm trying something this morning. Let me, yeah, that's it. Let me do this. Put this, come here, come here. There we go. Okay, this is not doing what I expected to do. Okay, so this may be a little bit belabored, but I'm going to take just a few minutes to do it, and I want to show you something I've thought about doing for a long time, and I just like today I decided to try it. So one of the things I do to try and help myself is, and I learned this from you, Nick, is as I just I've got to buy a new mouse. This thing is really driving me crazy. I just work the price action like this and just take out all the noise as much as possible, you know,
Mm-hmm.
just to see like what is it telling me that it's doing, because for a long time I've often had a lot of situations where, and even that's a little bit over articulated. There's probably too much noise in that, but a lot of time I just wonder why it's doing what it's doing, and like in the case of yesterday, I think it shouldn't be doing what it is doing. And so as a result of that, I tend to go, oh, okay, well, it's not allowed to do that, which is kind of silly when you say it like that, but that's really what my mind does. Okay, so this morning what I did is I said, okay, well, here's the sort of denoised movement. Well, what would be probable in this situation? And that I said, okay, well, probably you get a little check down and then you move up and test the top side of the auction. We actually get to push through, and then we fail right here. It just doesn't, so it's a balanced day. We're going to walk back down. Maybe we'll make a new low, and probably attempt to break that overnight low, something like that. That might be a thing. All right, well, what's the alternative to that? Well, maybe we check up first, but we can't really find enough buyers to do that. So we start to roll down, we try again. Nope. Right around the point of control, that makes sense. Push through, break, and then there's a little structure down here that I think we might get to. And then I said, okay, well then, what if sellers take control right up front? We want to break that overnight. Well, boom. They might try and check back up, can't get there, break down through, get down to this structure, and then now the buyers finally step in and whatever, like something like that. That's how I drew my
Mm-hmm.
scenarios. And I said, oh, okay, you know what? Now this kind of makes sense. I could see how this makes sense inside of the denoise structure. So to that end, um, while ordinarily my first reaction was the overnight took advantage and got more movement out of the day, and the euphoria and missing out stuff that would have might have plagued me this morning, I've tried to dissipate by talking through it and saying, okay, well, the first thing that I would really expect in a scenario where we move down first, even if it's just a little bit or even if it's a lot of it, would be an impulse reversal. So I have to assume that we've moved down too far for us not to get a buy response. So I'm looking for scenario one being that we impulse down, but we lose delta, we lose pace of bid, we impulse into development value or just below it with delta. We get it. So what that would look like is kind of like what happened yesterday. We push down, we get a reversal right back into development value, and then I just named out the plays that happen. So this would be play number one, and then a continuation that would be play number two. But all I'm looking for to confirm that scenario is, do we get that impulse reversal where we try and move out of development value, and we can't. We lose delta, it immediately gets uh, uh, stuffed, and
Hmm.
all the better if it doesn't break the overnight low. The alternative to that, so the antithesis to that hypothesis is that we do leave developing value, we impulse out of developing value with delta, and we get an imbalance pullback. So we don't get the impulse reversal. We don't get a pace of bid failure. We see the wave delta imbalance. We see lowering opposition into the pullback into developing value. We're seeing buyers back off, which means sellers are going to probably take over. And then in that case, I would expect us to break the overnight low and then get down to this low structure down here. You can't see it on the chart now, but it's down there. And then the second idea would be is if we do decide move up first, it could be the blue scenario or the red scenario, I suppose. But what I would expect to see if the sellers have control or can maintain control on the day, is that we would see a bear imbalance, we'd see a pace of bid exhaustion, we'd see lowering opposition, wave delta imbalance, we'd see seller initiation, and then we'd see a return to VWAP. So what that would look like, I think now that well, I can't pull all this off. Let's see what it's okay if I do this. Okay. What that would look like is this. Come here and you say, all right, now we get what we've got is a move up, move all the way up to here, and then we get an exhaustion thing right there like this, and then we roll back down here. And that'll look like a pace of bid line here before we get to the thing, and then we start to see lowering delta here. So it'll be high at first, but then it'll start to back off like that. And then you'll see sellers initiate, and then the buyers don't initiate, and you would expect to see that happen, right around yesterday's close, right before you get into this secondary auction above us that we fell from, respecting this low volume area. And then from there, I don't know. Those are basically the two plays that I'm, first battle plan. Those are the things that I'm expecting on the morning for today.
So let me ask you a question. So basically, it looks to me that you're walking in with a neutral bias, and you're going to decide to be a buyer or a seller depending on what happens. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I'm not immediately saying I'm a buyer or a seller. It sort of depends on how the first moves play out.
Okay.
Really, I'm
I
I'm
mean,
looking
that's
to see
just,
what the first move is before I decide what I'm going to do.
Hey guys, can I jump in for a second? As I'm I'm always doing what you're describing, Josh. And I don't know if I don't know how you guys come up with these. And I'm not saying I don't know how to. I guess what I'm trying to say is I would like to see how you guys come up with these scenarios because yeah, I mean I make somewhat some scenarios, but I'm not really considering a lot of the historical like the past 5 days or something like that, or the past week. I'm more looking at what's happening yesterday and in the session before, so I'm always looking for the first half an hour to see what direction we're going and then jump on board. I really don't make scenarios like you guys do, and I'm not sure if I should be doing that or if that's something I should try.
well,
What
I
it
mean, there's a simple answer to that question. Are you successful with what you're doing? If you're making money with
Well,
what you're doing, you don't have to change anything.
it's well, I mean, you've seen my stats. It's not that I'm making a whole lot of money, but it's not that I'm failing either. You know, I think right now my issue is more of risk management and holding on for the trades and possibly even switch from binary trading to multiple lots. But you know, my I guess my trading uh, plan works, you know, a good amount of the time, and the probabilities are there, you know.
Right. Well, the only thing that I've noticed over time for me is that the bigger picture context takes control of the market at times. And if you're really focused in on just yesterday, the day before, and the overnight session and things like this, you will be shorting when the market's ready to break into a new level, or you'll be buying when the market's breaking down on the big picture and you just get run over. So, it just depends on what level you're willing to take. If you can take a trade there and just know there's a chance that the bigger picture can override your thinking, then it's all relative to what everybody can do. I mean, what they can think at the time. And if you're successful doing really short-term stuff, not even considering the bigger picture, then there's no reason to add the complexity.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
For me,
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's reason to, and that's why I do it.
No, and don't get me wrong. It's not that I don't look at the overall perspective. Of course I do. You know, I always have a daily charts and a couple hourly charts, and I look at it, you know, kind of where the market's going. But I'm more focused on what's happening in the real time. You know, I guess that's just part of my plan, I guess.
I think I know what you're
Right.
saying, though. My addition to what Nick has said and how it's helped me is that there are times where I get low level signals or the low time frame signals that I can't, um, that I've seen contradict themselves in the plan. And I'm not an SMB trader who can say, well, if it's out of development value, short, I'm shorting only. Or, I don't believe that. I think this is a great tool, but the context, I've just been run over way too many times to just accept that location is what dictates bias. I don't, it can, but not exclusively. And maybe that's me misunderstanding what development value is supposed to be and do. But I use it to help me understand the movements and internalize what the auction is doing, not necessarily because I'm completely basing a trade off of it, but because I want to have some expectation about what the market could or should do. And then as I did today, like for instance, like I'll just pull this out to the point. Oh shoot, what did I just do? This is what I meant to do. Okay, like to this idea here, like I've got down to the play of what I expect to happen here, and if that happens, that exact thing happens. I don't care what else has happened in the day. I'm taking that trade. I'm really clear on what exactly I was looking for, and I found it. Click. I'm able to do that more effectively, I think, because I'm able to see as I drew out how the movements should look. Because and the last thing, I have a tendency to get tunnel vision on the signals and narrow my time frame so low that I end up taking trades too early and then actually miss the move. It happened to me twice yesterday. Still do it even though I'm putting this extra work in.
Yeah, gotcha. That happens to me quite often, actually.
So Nick, I guess back to your point, you said I'm not going to be a buyer until say it again.
Sorry.
You were going off of I'm not going to be a buyer until the market moves something. So I don't know if you completed your thought. I just want to make sure you did.
Well, the only thing I was just I just wanted to clarify in your mind, actually, more than me, because I know what it sounded like. I just wanted to make sure that this is what you were actually saying. You're walking in today with a neutral bias. That's the way I look at it. When I'm thinking your way, I'm looking, what I'm saying is I could be a buyer or a seller today. I got no bias going in. I'm going to look at the real-time signals. I'm going to look at the market for the short term, and I'm going to just judge it as it goes. And if it goes to these levels, this is what I'm going to do.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
I wanted to be clear.
Yep.
I just wanted to be, more precise on mentioning it, because today for me, I'm not going to be walking in neutral at the moment. And I'll tell you why, and that doesn't mean that it's wrong, but when you look at my screen, you have this daily consolidation pattern.
I hate to interrupt you, but I'm gonna
And
have
this,
to. Your screen is not coming in.
it's not coming up.
Yeah, it's not coming up yet.
Hold on.
There we go. Beautiful. Thank you,
Okay,
sir.
so all I'm saying is that this is a consolidation for me on the daily. And you can see that it's like 8 days, okay? And today we're opening right on the edge of this area. And we tested lower down to about this trend line in the overnight session. So, you know, if we start to break away from this upper balance, that's going to be bearish. And I'm walking in thinking I'm leaning a little bit more on the bearish side for the bigger picture, because the bigger picture to me is if we're not going to be bearish, we're probably just going to move up to here, right? The point of control of this area.
Right.
If we are going to be bearish and we break this trend line and the 20 period moving average, we're going to go down here. So it's like,
Right.
you know, it's a big move. And so I'm just saying out loud that I'm going to lean a little bit more on the bearish side, but I'm still going to allow the market to tell me what the direction is. So, so here's what we have. And the only thing that I wanted to point out that was important for yesterday was inside the overnight range. And then in the overnight session, we broke the low of the overnight range, okay? So we've broken the low of the RTH session. We basically balanced inside of that whole session yesterday. And now we're breaking into this area. Now, we had a nice bounce off of this initial area where the local HVN comes in and about where the 20 period moving average comes in. And now we're trading this gap zone, which is a very thin area in price. So my initial battle plan is going to be a little bit more on the bearish side. I'm expecting the market to push up a bit more and test the overnight mid, which is this blue line, the low area here. This balances with the volume that happened in the overnight session, and then, you know, potentially the low end of this range. If we roll over and start heading lower, I'm going to be targeting this HVN. I think we're going right through this gap. Very good chance we take out this low and we start to meander down to these ranges if we get some serious follow through. So my first idea is that, you know, battle plan number one is to take advantage of this move up to get short. And so if that doesn't happen and it doesn't just kind of come up here, I would imagine this to be a quick rejection. I imagine it to look pretty strong on the way up, but almost immediately fall away and start to roll over. If by chance the alternative to that scenario would be if we moved up to this range and then we started to do this and balance and then poke higher after it balanced a bit and poke, you know, like that, obviously that trades off. You know, if I can recognize this, I'm going to off, you know, pretty much off the trade. So it's either we push up and we kind of fade back down almost immediately, or we push up and we balance. And if we start to balance above the mid, it's off the table. So that's decision point number one for me. The other thing that could make it a little bit more difficult and is that if we start to come down into this range off the open, that to me would be a little bit more on the bullish side, kind of take out the excess of this, you know, maybe not take out the overnight low. And if we don't, I would be looking for some sort of, reversal. But here's the thing, I'm leaning on the bear side to start. So we start to come down as phase two is we don't go up, we go down. And when we go down, really going to be looking at the delta and the strength of this move. I'm going to try to correlate with the overnight, the other markets, because it's not as good of a setup selling it in the hole,
Right.
obviously. So, I'm going to try to look for some sort of a pullback test and then a rollover to get short, potentially this area. And this would be around the overnight point of control after we test it down. If we test down and immediately take out the overnight low, it's going to be harder to get aboard. So you're going to have to look for some sort of other thing to happen. So those are basically the two battle plans. One is if we move up to the overnight mid, I'm going to be looking to short the overnight mid. If we move down from this level and the pace is strong enough to get a move lower and a break of the overnight low, I'm going to try to trade into the overnight low on the short side. And then if it continues to break, I'm going to try to hold on to some runners and let it go. It's going to be a little bit of a real-time read,
Yep.
but with the idea that I'm looking on the short side first. The bulls have to prove that they are here.
So what would that actually look like?
Open drive higher that breaks through the overnight mid. Clearly that would do it. If we break through the overnight mid and we don't reject anything, we start balancing on the other side of that mid, which is only 6 points higher than where it is right now. So it's not like I'm asking for a lot.
All right.
If the buyers can take it up to 51.5 area and get it through the overnight mid, and then that would be a sign that the bulls are taking back control and we're pushing it back up. And to put that into some level of idea, what that looks like on the bigger picture, we can just throw this back up. Would be, and I'm throwing on the Globex, if it comes up fast enough, great. If it doesn't, great. Okay, so this is the overnight session, right? So this would be the bar for the 24-hour session. Basically, what I'm looking for is if this starts turning green, okay, buyers have shown up. I mean, basically, the midpoint of this area is right about here. So it starts to pull back up into this range and look like, oh, okay, we poked down, tested this SMA, tested the trend line. Okay, everything's great. We're going back up. We're going to start hitting these levels. And of course, anything over this point of control would be buyers in control, which is only, 68s. It's not like it's a whole lot higher than where we are right now.
Right.
So again, there's two levels of buyers showing up, getting over the overnight mid, getting above this point of control, or even getting to the point of control. The downside may be over.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can see it a little bit more clearly on your charts, or with the ES rather. Look at that top at 37 that is now being tested into for the first time. So
Yeah.
you could see an open drive from the morning would say, yeah, that we've collected all the contracts we needed. We're ready to go higher now.
Yeah, and the 37, look what it is. You're filling this, you're in this really skinny area, right? If you look back, what created this skinny area? It was an impulse from here.
Yep.
Boom. It's harder to see because there's so much shit on this chart when you scrunch it down, but this is the impulse up from there, right? That's what we're testing. We're testing right into here.
Yeah.
So my question is that enough of a test and we're done and we're going back up? And that should be clear. And that would be clearly taking out the overnight mid for me.
Yep. Makes sense. Real clear. Well, I'll be looking at the ES for imbalance plays. Maybe I'll catch the high of the day.
Good idea. Huh?
It's always best to catch the high of the day. That's the one I want.
Well, yep. Especially if you're shorting.
Yes. Yeah. You don't want the high of the day if you're going long. That's not good.
No, I've done that before, actually.
I've done that too. Right on. All right. Well,
Not as
good luck.
fun.
Nick, you're
Good,
on the
guys.
still December contract, right?
Yeah, I'm still in December on everything.
Okay.
I'm going to switch this weekend for sure.
You hear that, Ben? You got a new ES trader.
What do you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna start trading ES now, so I'm ready.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Let's do it,
I'm
man.
only looking for one kind of setup, but I'll be looking at it. So,
All right, man. Good luck, guys, today, and yeah, man. Good stuff.
all right, take care.